The first piece of advice, any attorney, any professional listening, saying, oh my God, I just spent all this money on this education and I don't like what I'm doing. Oh my God, how am I going to tell my mom? How am I going to tell my spouse? How am I going to pay back my loans? Take a deep breath, and you can take all that experience and take all that money and take all that education and you could apply it somewhere else. And let's help you try to apply it to something you're going to like.
There's often a gap between what you're taught in school and what's really important when it comes to the real world. Our guest today found that out the hard way. Jason Weiss is an author, podcast host, and lawyer. Now with over 25 years in the legal world, he's here today to share with us practical, hard-earned, real advice that anybody can apply to be successful in a people-driven, high-pressure environment. Welcome to the Learn It All podcast, the show for today's leaders who are looking to get ahead and stay ahead, because we believe great leaders aren't born or made, we're always in the making. I'm your host, Damon Lemby, two-time best-selling author and CEO of Learn It, a live learning platform that has upskilled over 2 million people over the past 3 decades. I'm really looking forward to have Jason share his thoughts around why the practice of law never really ends, how to recover from losses and learn to develop thicker skin, what not to do when giving or receiving professional advice, how to pick the right clients and when it's time to walk away, and why communication and follow-up might be your most valuable assets. So you walked out of law school with a law degree, but when did you first really realize that you weren't prepared for the real world?
So I admit, I walked out of law school with a law degree, and then I went and took the Florida bar exam and passed it my first time through. And then I got my first letter from my loans that said I owed $88,700. So that was it. I guess the first time that I really didn't know I was prepared or didn't know what I was getting into was when I went and sat with one of my bosses at the time. And he basically just said to me, look, I saw the action and boom, 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 boom. And it dawned on me, like, this guy looked at the stuff that I gave him for literally 30 seconds and he knew what to do. And here I was, and I spent hours looking at something and I was so confused. And it's really the stuff, and here's a plug on me, it's really the stuff they didn't teach me in law school, right? It was kind of like the real life stuff. And it was just amazing to see how this gentleman in literally 30 seconds was like, all right, these are the points, these are the arguments. And oh, by the way, Jason, you're getting on a plane tomorrow and you're going and arguing it. And I was like, okay.
And how did you do when you got there to argue it?
I actually won. It was something that, it's a summary judgment. We were defending it. And the other side has the higher burden to get it. So they have to prove their case. And I just need to say, basically, you didn't prove your case. And I brought up enough at the time for the judge to go, you know what? Not on a summary judgment. Let's keep going. So I was like, winner, it was awesome.
That's awesome. So now you've been practicing law for going on 20 some odd years, right?
I am entering a year 25, I guess. I started practicing in 2000. So September of 2000, I was sworn in. So I guess September of 2025, I'll be practicing 25 years.
Well, congratulations. Time flies, doesn't it? I mean, here we are. I mean, last time I checked, I was still in school, and now Learn It's on its 30-year anniversary.
I know. But remember, it's called the practice of law. And I will say that because I could be at it 25 years, 50 years, or 100 years. Hopefully not 100. I'll be dead by then. But, and I will still be practicing. It's, there's no right or wrong. It's just the practice.
Yeah. So let's dig in there a little bit. What do you mean by the practice of law?
So it's kind of like, like doctors, the practice of medicine. You could come to me with a set of facts and I can say to you, Damon, I've handled 20 of these cases in the past, and this is how all 20 of them have gone. You can't do that in law, right? It can be, look, I've handled 20 of these in the past, and 5 went this way, and 5 went that way, and 5 I don't remember, and 5 we settled before it went there. So it's kind of like we need to try it out. It's not a one size fits all a career or anything just in the law in general. Look, you could go in front of a judge and she could have had a terrible night's sleep and you get in there and you say, "Good morning, Your Honor," and she's not in your favor, and boom, you're done. You could get in front of a judge, and she could say, "You know what? I'm an Eagles fan, and the Eagles won the Super Bowl. I am so happy, Mr. Weiss. Whatever, today's your lucky day. I'm going to grant your motion." You never know.
Yeah, I was reading a Daniel Kellerman book actually once where it said you could get more favorable judges at certain times of the day if they're less hungry. I mean, like you said, you just kind of never know. I mean, it comes down to it. So let's plug your book. Pull up your copy. The shit they didn't teach you in law school, right? There you go.
The Survival Guide to Navigating the Law. And I will say this, when I came up with the title, I loved it, right? It was going to be called The Shit They Never Taught You in Law School, but I decided to make it generic shit because of the fact that it's not just one book, right? This thin book is not everything. So, and it's not just for lawyers. I put it out to friends and family on a pre-release before it came out about a year ago, and they all read it, and they were like, "I only have one complaint." And I'm like, "Well, what was that complaint?" It's not only for lawyers. Us non-lawyers understood it as well. We liked it as well, so you could market to them as well. So I've actually, and I just finished it, getting ready to go to the can, basically is what I call it, with volume 2. And it's going to creatively be called More Shit They Never Taught You in Law School.
Well, I was going to say, you said you were going to go to the can. So I'm like, oh my goodness, here this guy goes.
Yep. So, well, that's what I called it. I did a lot of film work when I was in law school and practicing. So I say, I put it in the can, having to do with the old reels, but it's going to be something along the lines, the Not Just for Lawyers Guide to get navigating law, life, and so much more. And that's what I'm going to focus on.
And so for your first book, you say that it applies beyond law. What are some of the key skills that everybody needs to thrive in today's day and age?
Simple things like follow-up, right? You have a great meeting with somebody. I don't care if you're in sales, if you're interviewing an attorney, if you just got interviewed for a job, right? You have a great meeting, you knock it out of the park. Send a follow-up, right? Plain and simple. Send that follow-up and say, hey, it was such a pleasure. If you need anything else from me, I'm really excited to help. I'm ready to do. Just let them know, right? Don't hide the fact that you're interested. Go into it. Say, look, I want this job. What do I have to do to get this job? Maybe not in those words, but close enough to it where you just have that. And I wouldn't be bashful in saying it. One of the other things, like, just for example, what would your mother, rabbi, or priest say, right? That's one of the chapters. And that goes for anything, right? You find a wallet on the street, you open it up. There's $100 in there, and there's a credit card and a driver's license. What do you do with the wallet, right? Each person's going to have their own thing. If you could then tell your rabbi, your priest, your mother, your spouse, hey, I found a wallet and it had $100 in it, and this is what I did, and you're not ashamed and you're proud of it, then you made the right decision. You might say, for example, I gave the wallet, the $100, and everything back to them, no questions asked, right? I might say, there was $100 in there. And what I decided to do is take out $30 and pay for the FedEx to FedEx it to the address on the driver's license, right? I don't see any harm in using their money to return their thing. You might have said, you know what? I'm good. I just want to feel good. I paid for it. Somebody else might say, you know what? I kept the $100, but I did FedEx it to them and I did give them everything. And the $100, it wasn't there when I found the wallet. I don't know that there's a wrong answer out of any of those. Somebody could say, hey, look, I found the wallet, the credit cards, everything, stuck the $100 in my pocket, threw the wallet out, shredded the credit cards and the driver's license, and went about my way.
You got to figure out what your level of integrity is and doing the right thing. So let's go back to your book, because I really like this, because it's not just about law school. I mean, formal education in general is great, but it's theoretical, right? So What is it that you learned in law school but wasn't able to help you move forward in the future?
I'll give you a great example. And this wasn't scripted, so this is great. When you get out of law school, the first thing that you're probably going to do, especially like if you come work with me or another attorney, we're going to have you write, right? We're going to have you write a brief. We're going to have you write a motion. We're going to have you write something. And in law school, right or wrong, they teach you how to write from both sides of the story, meaning
Interesting.
if A, B, and C happen, this will happen. If 1, 2, 3 happens, this will happen, right? That's great. But when a client comes to you, the client doesn't come to you and say, hey, I just got sued, or I want to sue. What do you think? No, client comes to you and the client's going to say, look, I want to sue this guy and I want to collect the money that I'm owed. Get it done. Okay. Now, what do you have to do? You have to say to the client, no problem. Let's get it done. Now, could you advise of some pitfalls? Absolutely. Hey, this is a breach of contract we're suing on. Can I have a copy of the signed contract? Oh, you don't have a signed contract? Okay, we're going to say that there's a signed contract. Do you believe there is one? Yes, I just can't find it. It was lost in a fire. They have it. Great. We're going to be honest with the court. This is a signed contract. We lost the original. The other side has possession of it. And as part of our action, we're going to ask for a copy of it. But in law school, they don't teach you that. In law school, it would be, well, if you can produce the signed contract, da 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 da. But if you can't produce the signed contract, da 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 da. No. So you have to advocate. And law school basically, and again, I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just how it teaches you. It teaches you to argue both sides, to see the whole playing field. But in reality, you're going to be narrowly focused on this. I want my money back. We need to sue. How do we win? And that's what they want to know. Well, you also need to be honest with your client. And that's another thing, right? Telling your client, look, you don't have a good case, or, hey, I went in and I argued and I lost. They never teach you that in law school. Never. And that's one of the hardest things that you ever had to do. Like when I told you I won that motion for summary judgment hearing, I was on a roll right out of law school. I won like 4, 5, 6, 7 motions in a row. I did lose, right? I lose.
I want to hear a story about you having to put your tail between your legs and go tell a customer that you lost.
Look, I had one recently where it was about a piece of property that my client bought in the commercial setting. And unfortunately, there were things that were hidden from my client. My client didn't know about it. And the court ruled against us. The court said, you know what? It's a commercial setting. You had the opportunity. It wasn't a residential property. You could have done your own due diligence because you chose not to is on you. And that was it. And I'm like, huh? Like, really? The other thing is that, not everybody understands how a case, a lawsuit really goes. And sometimes when the clients will read what you send them as a draft because they want to see, they want to be hands-on, they'll be like, oh my God, this is great. Let's go for $1 million, not just 100,000. You made all these great art. Hang on, look, this is all to get the judge to see it our way. We're still only suing for 100 grand, but this is there. And then you go in and you argue and the judge is like, denied. And you're like, well, why? Because at a motion to dismiss stage, which is at the beginning of the case, it's very hard to win. But if we present that same argument 6 months down the line, we probably could win. I didn't say will, I said could. Because again, it's the practice of law. You get in front of this judge and, he had a flat tire on the way into chambers this morning and he's all pissed off and all this and all that. And you're right there in front of the judge saying, hey, judge, I want to win. You know what? Mr. Weiss, I lost this morning. You're going to lose today. Denied. Thank you, Your Honor. Have a wonderful day.
So one of the things you talk about in your book a lot that really applies to not just lawyers, but to entrepreneurs, businesses like Learn It, who've been around for 30 years, is really picking who you want to work with. Can you share a little bit more about that? Because you have to kind of set yourself up for success. You can't even if you're getting started, you can't just take on everybody.
Well, I did when I first got started, and that was a learning curve and a mistake, right? When I first started on my own, when I opened my own firm 13 years ago, I practiced what I self-described as door law. If it came in the door, I would take the case. Now that I'm 13 years in my own practice and I have a nice client base, I don't have to take every case that comes in the door. I could be a little bit more selective, and I've chosen to be. But again, you have to work with the clients that you want to work with. A client that respects your boundaries, you want to work with them. A client that pays their bill timely or sets up a payment plan if they can't do it as a lump sum, or is working with you and communicating with you saying, look, I apologize, I can't pay your bill. We had a slow month, but I have funding coming in next month, so I'm only going to pay you $100, and I know I owe you $1,000, but okay, like, you work with people like that. You work with that. But the client who, hey, look, I haven't got paid in 3 months. What's going on? And radio silence and crickets. Bye. You don't have to work with that person anymore. And there should also be some signs that maybe you shouldn't work with that person, right? You're the 4th, 5th, 6th, or 10th lawyer on the case. You Google the client, and let's say it's not in a legal sense, and you find out there's 4 lawsuits against the client because they're not paying bills. Well, you might not want to work with that client in any setting, right? Hey, the electric companies after them, the water companies after them, the cable companies after them. Guess what? You don't want it to be your business who's added to that list.
No, absolutely. And, when you're just getting started, you want to maybe get a hold of whatever you can, but then you realize you can go down, a dark hole, even, with somebody who may not be the best client. So how do you know when it's time to let go? I mean, do you ever have any examples or any stories of looking back on it where you knew you should have let go earlier, but there's sunken cost, you just kind of held on too long?
Yeah. Look, when I went to go buy a house, I had a client that was in debt to me for a nice amount of money, like 60, 70 grand. And I turned to him and I'm like, no more. I can't do it anymore. I don't know how I let it get to this point, but I did. And he turned to me and he's like, okay, here's what I could do. I'm a contractor. I have people. I have all this. When you buy that house, you're going to want work done. Yep. Why don't I do the work? Well, what does that mean? I'll send my crews out there. I'll do whatever. I'll take care of their payroll. You just take care of the supplies. Okay. Sounded good to me. I bought paint and I bought plaster and I bought plastic and you name it. I bought all that stuff, and he was supposed to send workers out, and I got a phone call, and it wasn't his name, but same last name and a different first name. I'm like, I don't know. And I picked it up, and it was this gentleman's son, and he wanted to let me know that his dad was just picked up for violation of his parole.
Ouch.
Or, doing things that he wasn't allowed to do. And I probably will not be seeing him for multiple years. And here I am, 60 grand in the hole, another $10,000 in supplies. And guess what? I didn't have the money. And these guys are showing up to do the work, and they're doing the work, and they turn to me and they're like, we were told to get paid by you. Wait, insult, injury, what? Wound up getting everything done, wound up coming out of pocket, massive amount of money, borrowing from my parents, thanks mom and dad, paid them back in full completely, but I was stuck. And it allowed me to go back and say hey, Jason, why did you allow so-and-so to get 60 grand in debt? Right? So I look at it this way. I won't let a client get further into debt that I'm not comfortable. Just like I won't lend somebody money that I'm not comfortable in not getting it back. If you said to me, hey, Jason, could I borrow $100? Thankfully, at this point in my life, $100 is not going to make or break me. And I would be like, you know what, Damon? Absolutely. If I never get that $100 back, so be it. I'll probably tease you about it and bust on you about it. Hey, that's a nice shirt. Cost $100, that type of thing. But it's not going to make or break me. And I say, do the same with clients, right? Don't let them get ahead of you. Don't let them abuse you, and treat it kind of like you go to a restaurant, you order the food, you're not allowed to leave without paying. You hire me, You give me money up front, I will work and I will continue to work. Just stay current on your bill.
So, Jason, what are some other misconceptions that everyday non-lawyers have about lawyers in general?
Two that come to top of mind. First one is that, oh, you're a lawyer? Can you help me out with my husband and I were getting divorced, or my husband and I, my fiance and I were getting married. Can you help me with a prenup? Or my so and so just passed away. Stop. Like, I don't do that. You tell me you're buying a business, I can help you. You want to sell a business, I can help you. You're getting sued, I can help you. You want to set up a trust for your family and all that? Not me. You want to get divorced? Not me. You want to immigration things? Not me. So although I'm a general practitioner, I really focus in business disputes, business mergers, purchase, sale, all that kind of stuff. You know, you got a speeding ticket in South Florida, I might be able to help you, but why? Why not send you over to the right person? So we don't really focus or let me change that. Most attorneys will focus in a specific area: family and criminal, family and business, family and corporate. But we're not a one-stop shop, right? You can't come to me and get everything across the board, but I can get you to the right people, right? You need someone to help you with a prenup. I've got a guy. You need somebody to help you with a trust and estate stuff. I've got a woman. You got so that's point number one. Number two is that we know it all. We don't, right? You give me a scenario, you give me a set of facts, and most of the time you're gonna be like, oh yeah, sure, okay, I got this, I got that, no problem. Damon, this is what you need to do. Da 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 da. Okay, no. Give me your set of facts. I'm going to tell you, hey, look, this is unique. This is something that I need to dig a little bit more. I'm going to get back to you in 24, 48, or 72 hours because I want to do a little bit of research, because I don't want to steer you down the wrong path, because I know what my gut says. My gut says it should be ABC, but I'm not confident enough to say that. So let me do this. Let me take it. Let me research it. Let me bounce it off a colleague maybe, and I'll be back in touch. And that's okay.
Is that something that you have learned over time? Because as I'm hearing you speak, a lot of entrepreneurs, whether you're lawyers or not, they're afraid to say, Jason, I don't know, right? Because a lot of times people think, well, you have to have all the answers, but it's okay to be vulnerable and say, let me think about it and come back to you.
So I think it's important to do that, because look, you might pose a question and I might be able to go ahead, but maybe I need more facts. Maybe I want to check the law. Maybe I want to check the jurisdiction. Maybe I want to see a piece of paper that everybody signed. Maybe I want to consult ChatGPT, to go ahead and see what new developments came out, right? And it happens in the law all the time, especially at the beginning of the year. I was handling a case for a friend, and the friend called me up and he's like, Jay, did we screw up? I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, I read something that came out and it said that for this type of case, it's no longer 4 years. You have to do it within 2. I'm like, you're correct. However, you didn't read the fine print. And this is where I come into play, that it's not retroactive. So as long as we filed by December 2024, or as long as it happened before December 31st, 2024, you get 4 years. But if it happens on January 1st, 2025, or anytime thereafter, yes, you only get 2. And oh, by the way, we're not even at 2 years yet. So you could take a deep breath and relax. But again, I just happen to know that. If I didn't know it, I'd be like, no. There's got to be something about retroactivity, grandfathered in. I know this is important to you. Go about your day, do whatever. Let's talk this time tomorrow. You hop on the computer, you do the check, you figure it out. Hopefully, 9 times out of 10 or 10 times out of 10, it's, yeah, I was right, no big deal, blah, blah, blah. But that 1 time, 2 times, or even 5 times out of 10, you got to take your lumps. You know what? You're right. And here's my way of fixing it. Not, you're right, you're screwed. You're right. I got it. But I found this case that says da 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 da. So when you are and that's going back to the question you posed before. When you have to deliver bad news, if you could deliver the bad news, but with a potential solution or an action plan or something, that's huge. And they don't teach that in law school either. It's not just, we lost, you lose, you have to pay. It could be, look, we lost. We have 30 days to appeal. We could file a motion for reconsideration. The other side knows that you don't have the wherewithal to make the payments, and they're happy to make a payment plan with you. The other side is willing to give you flexibility. Like, there are so many things that you can't just say, I lost, oh my God. It's got to be, look, we lost, and here's our next steps. And I think that's important, that people want communication, especially in this day and age, right? If you can't find it instantly on Instagram and instantly on the internet and instantly on ChatGPT, what good is it? I was watching the Super Bowl, and I think what was his name? Kendrick Lamar was performing, and we were trying to figure out his jacket, where it was from, what it said, do whatever. And my mother-in-law was here watching the game with us, and she went on her phone and immediately found it like that. She was happy. She knew what it meant. She knew what it said, all of this and all that. But imagine if, it took a day to figure it out. Oh my God, and you got to manage client expectations. That's the other thing.
Yeah, that managing client expectations is so important. But let's go back for a second about taking your lumps, because what I like about what you said in your book is that it's really important to develop thick skin. So what are some key lessons you've learned for how to develop thick skin and bounce back from some setbacks that you've had?
So the one that I am still learning 25 years in a practice is, it's not personal, right? Business is
That's
personal,
a big one.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. But business is personal, right? I like to work with people that that like me. I like their product. I like whatever, right? And people that, it's not when your phone rings and go, oh God, it's so-and-so. It's more like, all right, it's so-and-so. Let me help her out with the case. Let me help him out with this. Let me see what's going on. But you got to remember, it's not you. It's not on your shoulders. It's not personal. Look, you don't show up to a hearing and you blow it and you miss the deadline and you do that's on you, right? But you go in and you're fully prepared and you just happen to not have a good day or happen to not have a good argument. That's not on you. And sure, the day you're like, oh, well, I lost, it's probably the day you need to reevaluate if it's right for you. But if it's, look, oh man, I lost. I can't believe I lost. I got to tell the client. I'm so annoyed. You do what you got to do. You take the rest of the day off. You sit in sorrow for the day. You drink your diet soda or your scotch, or you smoke your cigar, whatever it is. You drink a glass of wine. You mellow out and you start again fresh the next day. And that's so important. And you're not going to always win. You're going to lose, and you're going to lose when you should win, and you're going to win when you should lose. And the other side is going to win when you should win. It happens, and you don't have control over it. And my suggestion is, you put forth 100%. You make sure that you couldn't have done anything different, and you learn from it, right? You might not go in and argue in front of that judge at 9 o'clock in the morning, because that he has to get his kids to school and he has to do all this, and he comes in frazzled and he doesn't want to deal with it. You might know that on 11 o'clock is great for him, because all he wants to do is finish up real quick and get to lunch. Okay. You don't know. And you just need to do your research. You need to be planned. You need to be prepared, and you need to be ready to perform.
And you've kind of answered this question, but our show is the Learn It All podcast. How does continuous learning play a role for yourself as being such a successful lawyer?
Every day. We're learning every day. I am learning with tools such as AI, right? I would never say, oh, just find a case on ChatGPT and do all that. No. But ChatGPT might be able to point you in the right direction on how to frame the question if you can't find the law. It might let you know in a certain jurisdiction some of the local rules, where to look. but it's a constant learn. Know what changes are in the law, know what changes are coming down the pipe. Know that argument's been argued 7 times and it's failed all 7 times. Know that if something's been argued 100 times and it always wins. So you need to always be ready and prepared and follow the law. As attorneys, at least here in the state of Florida, we have to take what's called continuing legal education courses. I take CLEs, is what we call the things that interest me or things that I wouldn't otherwise know. So I just took a CLE about AI because it's something I've mentioned a couple of times and it's something I want to know about. I also took a CLE on having to do with like bankruptcy. I don't do bankruptcy. I don't want to do bankruptcy. I refer clients out to other bankruptcy attorneys, but I want to know enough that I can say, you know what? You might have to go ahead and file bankruptcy. Let me get you to the right person. Well, why do you think I need bankruptcy? Well, I took something recently, and these are the 4 criteria that you would qualify for. And from what I hear from you, it sounds like you have all 4. So let me get you with so-and-so, because all he does is practice bankruptcy, and he will give you a free consultation and chat with him.
Yeah, I think it's important, like you said, figure out what your strengths are, your passions. And if it's not in your lane, connect that person with a bankruptcy attorney, because then you're a trusted advisor, and they'll come back to you when there's other things that they can you could benefit them. I want to stick with AI a little bit. How do you foresee AI impacting or changing the way law works in the future?
So right now, I don't think AI has caught up with law yet. I do think AI is going to be a huge tool, right? I look at it as Batman. Batman's got that belt, and according to Joker in the original Batman movie with Michael Keaton, he has a line, "Where do you get all those wonderful toys?" Well, I think AI and ChatGPT and all of these, OneWave and all the others, I think they are tools in your utility belt. But Batman's utility belt hanging on the back of his door does no good. When it's on his waist and he can use it, direct it, and throw, whatever it needs to be thrown, I think AI is huge. Now, I will tell you, I'll go on and I'll be, on ChatGPT or one of the other platforms, find me a case that says ABC. And before you know it, boom, there's the case. And you say, all right, now narrow it down to Michigan. Boom, there's a case. And most people will say, got it. Smith versus Jones, and here we go. It's a case out of Michigan. Okay. My advice, and I'm going to say this slow to all of the attorneys that are listening and to everybody else, don't just take it on its face. Pull that case. Go into Westlaw, Google Scholar, LexisNexis, Case Text, whatever you use, and make sure it's right. Because I'll tell you from personal experience, oh my God, here's the case. How did I miss this? And great. And then I'll go ahead and I just quickly want to see more about the case, and I'll throw it into Westlaw. No such case. Or the case was wrong, or it was from the wrong jurisdiction, or it was from, and if I would have gone in and argued, I would have looked foolish. So I do think AI is ever changing, ever learning. We could call it the practice of AI use. But again, don't use it as gospel. Use it as, hey, maybe check this out. Go see what it's about. Do your research and make sure it's right. Because a lot of times I'm finding it's not.
I do believe I'm with you 100%. You can't use it as gospel. You can't just have it write a legal agreement for you and not check it or anything like that. I do believe that in like a lot of industries, there's probably a lot of old school lawyers who aren't going to implement AI at all. And it can be a benefit for you. It can save you time on doing things, but you can't just go at it alone. So that's great advice. But what is the worst professional advice anybody's ever given you in your career?
I'll tell you this. I was interviewing a coach because I have a coach. I've worked with coaches. I've done all that. And I wasn't happy where I was at in the law and everything that was going on. So I met with a coach, and she asked me some great questions. Why are you not happy? What could you see differently? Do all of this, do all that. And at the end of the coaching session, she goes, okay, here's my take. And I'm like, all right, let's go. She's like, close your law firm, stop practicing law, go ahead and pursue what it is that you love, and the money will come. Okay. Can you explain to me? Yeah, close up your door, go chase it. Okay. I
Hope you
had at
fired
that
her.
right. I had at that point in time like it was pre-COVID. So I had about 6 months of living expenses that I didn't have to change a thing in my life, and I could go 6 months without making any income and I'd be okay. And I said that to her. I was like, so what happens in month 7? She's like, foreclosure, they don't catch up to you for a while. And then you can always file bankruptcy. I'm like, it was such a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for opening up my eyes. And thank you for telling me I really need to get into the coaching space because I know more about what I'm talking about than you do. And that was it. So yes, chase your passion. Go after what you love. Get involved in things you want. That's all great advice. But you can't say, I'm going to blow off this deadline, or I'm not going to do this, or I'm not going to communicate with the client. No, 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 no. And never, ever, ever try to bury the mistake. Fess up to it, but don't just fess up to it. Fess up to it with a plan of attack or a plan of action or next steps. And when I'd heard from older attorneys that I worked for right out of school, and, look, we missed a deadline, or we missed this, or we missed that, and I'd get the response, don't worry about it. Don't listen to that advice. I would do the opposite. Call the chambers of the judge. It was a deadline of today. We missed it. We calendared it wrong. What should we do? File a motion, explain to the court, go check the local rules about excusable neglect. You'll be fine. Thank you. And and again, the older lawyers, probably that's the advice that I should have read between the lines. Like, don't worry about it. We'll fix it. We'll work it out. All I heard was, don't worry about it. No. Yeah.
Well, I think it's kind of like one of the themes that we're talking about here is the importance of communication and just dealing with something head on, right? Because you can't just bury the mistake because it's not gonna, it's just not gonna go away. So you have to address it. So I want to talk a little bit about your coaching, but one question that maybe you get is what advice you have for somebody. Let's say somebody who's an accountant, or they've been in sales their whole year, but they're a big John Grisham fan, and they said, you know what, I want to go to law school and become a lawyer. What advice do you have for them?
Think long and hard before you make that decision. If you live near a university that has law school classes, like, if you're in South Florida, go to University of Miami or FIU or FAU or any of the schools, go in, sit in a class, see what it's like. Know that it's nothing like what they show on TV. And you also need to be prepared to basically just focus on law school for year 1. 100%. When I went to law school, I had to sign something saying I would not work during my entire first year because they want you to have a full-time job and then some. So that would be number 1. Number 2 is, get your finances in order. Can you afford it? Do you need loans? And most importantly, why are you going to law school? Because you want to be like, these people on TV and they're arguing and they're going to court all the time and all of that. The only way to have that is go to the public defenders of the state attorney's office, and you're not going to be making the type
money.
Harvey Specter type money, right? Suits is a phenomenal show. I loved it, but not even close to reality.
No, I totally appreciate that. So let's talk a little bit about the coaching you're doing. What are some of the most common challenges that your coachees or people you're coaching are coming to you with?
I hate being a lawyer. I'm miserable with being a lawyer. Why did I go to law school? Right? That's the common thread. And it's funny because before I started coaching, I actually worked with somebody because I was trying to develop a course, right? A one size fits all, read these PDFs and you will be happy as a lawyer. Okay. No such thing. although there's a common thread for most of the people I work with, it's not always that I'm miserable, I'm not happy. They're just not content with where they're at. And what does that mean? I don't like my boss. I don't like my paycheck. I don't like my hours. I don't like the area of law. That's the first thing, right? I worked with somebody and I said to him, he came to me, he's like, I hate what I do. Okay, what do you do? I do litigation. Well, what do you hate about it? I hate the confrontation. Okay, what do you want to do? I just want to sit, research, and write. Okay, you're at a litigation firm. Do they have an appellate department? Well, yeah, they do. Well, why don't you see if you can get involved in the appeals? Huh? Because in appellate work, you're not going to have to go argue. You're not going to have to go fight with your client or fight with opposing counsel. It's all writing. It's all research. And he did. And he found out that he was allowed to do litigation and appeals work. And he did so well in appeals that he was able to move his entire area of practice into that. He eventually left the firm he was at and went over to a firm that all they do is appeals. I worked with a young lady who she hated what she was doing. Well, what do you hate? I don't want to go to court. I don't want to deal with divorces. It's making me and my husband fight, all this and all that. So why do you do family law? Well, I don't know anything else. Well, what can you learn? Well, I could start doing, some trust work. I could start doing some estate work because I do some of that with family law. I know some tax stuff. I said, well, there you go. And she decided to go into that area of practice. She eventually gave up the law, private practice completely, went in-house with a company, and I'm jealous as heck. So you know who I'm talking about. I'm jealous of you. But that's what it is. See, I don't think there's a commonality in what makes us unhappy in our profession. I think you just need to hear it. You need to say it. And the first piece of advice, any attorney, any professional listening, saying, oh my God, I just spent all this money on this education and I don't like what I'm doing. Oh my God, how am I going to tell my mom? How am I going to tell my spouse? How am I going to pay back my loans? Take a deep breath, and you can take all that experience and take all that money and take all that education and you can apply it somewhere else. And let's help you try to apply it to something you're going to like. You can negotiate, but you could do it as a car salesman, right? Car salesmen can make 6 figures plus if you're doing it right. So go negotiate. You could go become a judge. You could go become, like me, a mediator. There are so many different things you can do with that education. Chances are I can't take my law degree and scrub in and perform surgery tomorrow, but I probably can take the splinter out of my hand like I did earlier. You catch my drift.
Yeah, I get it. What I hear you saying, which I think is very important, is that the skills that you pick up, whether it's in law school or even practicing law for 20 years, they are transferable in other parts of your life. And so it's not a wash. It's stuff that you can use and can have a great impact on moving forward.
And the one thing I'll say is this: for anybody that's considering getting a coach, having a coach, doing all of that, just make sure you're going to a coach or somebody for the right reason. And what I say is this, and I did not when I first started. I went to a coach thinking that I work with a woman
What's
coach.
the wrong reason?
The wrong reason is I'm going to go to a coach and she is going to tell me what I'm doing wrong. And she is going to help me fix it. If that's why you're going to a coach, do not go. Okay. You go to a coach to figure out what it is that you're not happy with, what it is and all this, and to air it out, to speak about it, to come up with your own decisions. The coach should just be sitting there and say, how does that make you feel? Do you think you can make a change? Do you think you could do things differently? They should be asking more questions and not telling you, okay, stop what you're doing, go into your boss's office and demand a raise. No. Look, you're not happy with the money? Okay. How can we impress upon your judge or your boss that you need to make a couple more dollars, or that you want different hours, or this or that? Well, I know that I don't want to talk to him first thing in the morning because he comes in and says, nobody talked to me before I have my coffee. Aha. Step number 1, show up in his office with the cup of coffee saying, I got you a cup of coffee. I really need time. After you enjoy your cup of coffee, can we sit and chat? You know what he's going to be doing the entire time he's drinking the coffee. Man, why did he give me this coffee? What's wrong? Oh my God, do I need to make him happy? Is he going to quit on me? Right? Just little things.
So you've been at it for 25 years. How do you keep yourself still motivated?
Sometimes it's tough. Not gonna lie, when I win a big case or I get something for a client or, something comes in the door, that motivates me. Part of the motivation is also the going out there, trying to generate more business. Right now I'm focusing on trying to act less as a lawyer and more as a mediator. So I want lawyers to come to me so I can help them resolve their cases with their clients. And that's where I seem to find some passion again. What I keep forgetting is, look, I've been practicing law almost 25 years on my own for 13. It took me a while to build that up. So despite going out there and going to marketing events and telling people I'm mediating and doing all this, it's not like, boom, oh my God, here's 20 mediations for you right off the bat. No, I still have to work at it. And it falls into, going out there, getting seen, getting heard, and marketing myself once again.
Yeah, you know what I like that you talk about in your book, maybe you can share a little bit about it, is showing up actually trumps even having talent, right?
Yep. And look, there was an old show that an old guy like me watched, Night Court, right?
I love Night Court.
Okay, so I think his name was Harry Stone, Judge Stone on the show.
Yeah.
And he would always tell his story. How did you get appointed to the judge, to the bench? And he'd be like, it was a Friday night and I was the only one to pick up my phone. So showing up and being there is part of it. You may not be the best. You may not be the tallest. You may not be the strongest, the quickest, the fastest, the most polished person, but you're there. And that's half of it, right? And as long as
Half
your
the battle.
goal is to get 1% better every day, that's what it is. So, but look, there's got to be a balance, right? If I don't pick up the phone because somebody is calling, are they going to go call another attorney? Or are they going to call me back? Or are they going to text me saying, you didn't pick up. Can you call me back? So you got to stop with the fear of, oh my God, if I don't pick up the phone or respond to the email right now, that client's going to go somewhere else. No, it's not going to happen. And you can take a deep breath and you should respond within a business day, an hour. You could let them know, hey, I'm on a podcast. I'm in a meeting. I'm using the restroom. I'll be back in touch. That's all people want. Open dialogue.
Open dialogue and setting communication and expectations, right? Because I've seen that people like coach, especially salespeople, they think they have to respond immediately. You don't have to respond immediately. You just need to make sure that you respond at some point within a reasonable time frame, and get back with them with the right answer. Don't just rush back into it. As we wrap up here, so your book came out in January 24, I believe, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Is there anything from your book that you've changed directions on that, let's say you no longer subscribe to, like, okay, you don't believe that that's the case anymore? Or is there anything that you've really doubled down on since your book?
So me personally, I've doubled down on that business is personal, but at the same time, you can't take it personal. And that's two separate. So I'm working with more people who I like to be around to work. Like if I were to say I need to drive in a 3-hour drive, if I were to say to that person, I will meet you up there, and we can go ahead and do that. Is that something that's good? You got to be willing to work with the people that you want to work with. That's number one. I've doubled down on that. And number two is to try to take it not so personal, right? Oh my God, we lost. What did I do wrong? No, I lost. Okay. What's our next steps? What's our next game plan? So those are the two that I'm really working on. And one of the things I talk about in the book is I have an advisory board, right? These are the people that I go to for advice, that I go to bounce things off of, that I follow, that I mentor, that they're my mentor. So that advisory board has changed in the past year, probably 2 or 3 times. And that's something I recommend in the book. Don't keep it the same. keep changing it. So at least I listen to my own advice when it comes to that.
Is there one more piece of advice you want to leave our audience with?
Go out and buy my book, Shit They Never Taught You in Law School.
Show it again. Show it one more time.
And it's got the colors. It's a bestseller. It's all there. But no, the truth of the matter is, if you're an attorney who is just not 100% happy with where you are, or you want more, or you want change, or you're thinking about going to law school and you're just not sure, reach out. Those are the people that I'll work with you. I'll chat with you. I work with students regularly. And those are the clients that, yes, those aren't the ones that I'm going to make the most money off of, but I really enjoy working with them. Because I learn from them as much as they learn from me.
So where can our audience, besides buying your book, which I recommend, where can they connect with you at?
I'm on Instagram at Ask Jason Weiss, and I'm on LinkedIn at Jason-S-Weiss, Weiss. And you could always just email me at jason@askjasonweiss.com.
Thank you, Jason. We had a great conversation today. To kind of recap what we talked about the gap between formal education and real-world practice, the importance of client selection. You want to work with people who you can trust, who you like, and it's a win-win relationship. We also talked about developing a thick skin and how to handle setbacks, how to be smart when it comes to leveraging AI, can't just trust it like it's the gospel. And also really important for our conversation today was the power of follow-up and communication. So thank you, Jason. This was great. And for our listeners out there, if you know of anybody who wants to be a lawyer or maybe is a lawyer and they're unhappy with what they're currently doing, send them our conversation today because I know they'll get value out of it. And until next time, everybody, stay curious, keep learning, and have a great day. Thank you.
75% of workers today are millennials. 70% are graduating with student debt. It's the number one need within the workplace that, outside of candidly, is not being addressed.